We are now at the 4 o'clock hour of the October 11th, 2005 group, and we have again on my right Myra Krieger, we have Betty and Floyd Oster, and with our student group, if you would give us your name and where you're from, please.
My name is Deanna Hoffman, and I'm from Australia.
Very good. You are?
I'm Taylor Johnston, and I'm from Denver.
Okay.
I'm Laura Opsfeld. I'm also from Denver.
Good.
I'm Rory Kirsten. I'm from Grand Junction.
Brett Bergman. I'm from Grand Junction.
Very good. We have, can I put you closer together a little bit, please? As well? Thank you. Yes, there you go. Scoot right together. There we go. And again, when you preface your question, please just give us your first name. And the reason for that is because when you go back to transcribe this, it'll be so much easier to figure out who was saying what. Okay? All right. To begin with, Myra, Betty, Floyd are all from southern Weld County or central Weld County, south of LaSalle, which is about 35 miles from here. It is part of the Greeley area, the Greeley collective area, and Betty and Floyd live actually in the house that Floyd's parents built in 1917. Myra lives about 6-7 miles away, and Myra had for 30 years a rock shop. Right, she
40-some already.
40-some years. Myra is still actively involved in jewelry making and volunteering and all of that sort of thing. And Floyd, you're not really retired, are you, Floyd? You are? Okay. Okay. But busy. Retired but busy. Is that correct? Yeah, all right. Very good. Okay, so we'll just begin. Myra, let's start with you. And because, yes.
I'm Myra Krieger, and I live on the farm, like all three of us. And I'm the first child to be born from a German, what should I say, ancestor. My dad was 4 years old when he came across. I have cousins that are older, but then they all married much earlier than my dad did, so that he didn't get married until he was 36. So, and I have cousins that are 94 and like that, real old. And we spoke German because of the grandparents. When I went to school, I didn't understand enough in the first grade, and they sent me back home and told my parents to teach me English. And then when my sister started in school, and she was in the first grade and I in the third, we still conversed, with each other on the school grounds and somebody heard us. And so my parents got a threatening letter from the principal, and they said not another word. They didn't want to hear any German on the school grounds. So that was the end of it. And otherwise, well, then I went just to the 12th grade in high school. So, but I took mostly literature. I loved literature, geography, and music. And that's what I did more than, I didn't go into sports.
Myra, can you just add a little bit about how difficult it was to make a living when you're a child and your parents and
during the Depression?
Yes, just a little bit about it.
We were really, really poor. Let's see. We lived in LaSalle. It's about 3.5 miles from where we live out in the farm. And my dad worked at the pickle station. I think they had him painting the barrels and everything. So he earned enough money that he could get a sack of flour. And then in the late afternoon, Mom would send us to this little stand that was right along the highway. and that was, they were selling buttermilk. We had a little creamery in town, and that buttermilk was 5 cents a gallon. And you had to bring your own pail and go there, and they had these big barrels, and Mom always had plenty of fresh bread, homemade bread for us. So that was our evening meal, and I have no memory what we ate for breakfast or at noon, you know, but. And then when we moved out to the farm, it was too late to start a garden. And we often were so hungry. There was never meat, you know, when we were in town. Rarely did we ever have a meal with meat. And she went out to the cornfield, the field corn, and would get the younger, tender ears. And it was passable because we were hungry. But when she went and pulled up some sugar beets and tried to cook them, we just couldn't down that. So, and then at Christmas time, we were so poor that we didn't even have an apple or orange or anything like that. And Christmas Day, I happened to be outside. It was real warm that winter, very little snow. And here comes a truck down the road, and it was the merchants from LaSalle. And they stopped at this Spanish family's place. Every farmer had his own family. And we furnished everything. You had to furnish everything for them. So then I got all excited, and I thought, oh, we're going to get some apples and oranges, because I could see them throw out, you know, the pack and bags of it, and the candy. And that truck went right past, and I broke down, and I cried. I just thought that was so unfair, because we were feeding them, everything was free in here. But I said, we survived.
Floyd, do you want to talk a little bit about your start?
Well, I'm living in the same house that my folks built in 1916. I was born in Greeley, and the rest of the time was spent on the farm with the government give me a vacation for 3 years in the service, World War II. But there was 9 of us. No, shoot, there I messed it up. There's 7 of us boys, and each one of us had 2 sisters. But my folks built the house and raised 9 of us kids on 160 acres. And in the 30s, we thinned beets all over the country, 75 acres in 1 year. And that was good money for them days. And growed up working on the farm. Schoolhouse, my mother named, it was a 1.5 miles from home. She is on the school board, and when they got it finished, she walked out and they said, "What shall we name this school?" And my mom says, "Sky View." That's all you could see. There wasn't nothing else around. And that's what the school was named. And I went to the 8th grade in there. And then last week I went to college here. I've never been in college before. But I went 2 days. Didn't help.
Betty, a few words about your start?
We ended up with a big family of 11 children. Mom and Dad lived out on a farm to begin with, but my dad was not a farmer. He didn't like farming. He could trap, and we raised white rabbits and things like that to keep us going, garden. When Dad moved to town, he was the village blacksmith for all the farmers. Kept us going that way, and many still haven't paid their bill, still have them on the books. And I don't know.
What about you becoming a blacksmith?
Well, my brothers went to the service. I had 3 brothers in the service. No help. Dad needed help, so I was one of the older ones, so I had to go down the shop and help. I could do everything but hold the plow lays. I don't know if you know what a plow lay is, but it goes behind the plow. Anyway, under the trip hammer, because that old thing had come down a pound, and I only weighed 90 pounds, but I couldn't hold it under the trip. So Dad put me to drilling and welding and things like that. Helped a lot in the shop. All my brothers were gone. Yeah. Of course, we had to play ball. In the evenings, we got to play ball. So
You're pretty good at it, right?
I loved it. Yeah. I pitched 3 games in one day to win the South Dakota State Championship. Fast pitch for girls, for women. Yep, those were fun days.
I've told them all that this time that we're going to turn the table a bit, and there will be a chance for you to ask questions of them, because we've not done that yet in all of this time. But we'll let them ask questions first, and then we'll turn the tables on them. Questions from our group?
Can I just ask, how did you feel about not being able to speak your language at school with your friends and things? Did you feel that it wasn't fair that you weren't able to bring in your culture into the school? That they didn't allow for cultural diversity? Did it bother you, or?
Well, I think all the kids were German, weren't they?
Yeah, we all were Germans in raising beets, but I don't know why, I don't think though that the children, my generation, the parents probably all did, well, I know they did, because the church we went to always had their German sermon, and then for 15 minutes, and then we had an English one. And that part, but it was more the children, I mean, too, you know, that, because they weren't speaking German in their home, and they're the ones that tattled on us, but we were hated. And then when we'd get in the buggy to come home, then as they passed you, then they always called us, you dumb Dutchman and all that, you know, and just, you know, we got teased pretty. And then they thought we were so ignorant too, and, you know, it just,
My mother taught school for a couple of years, and well, it was down below where Myra lives, is Northwind School. She taught in there, and she wasn't German. Well, she was German, but she couldn't talk German. And they'd send the kids to school, and Mom would get teaching them English, and it always tickled her. There's a couple sisters come to school, one older and one younger, and Mom was showing them through the book, and they come to a big butterfly, and the little one, oh, she was so happy. Fluttermouse, and older sister was trying to quieten her down so she wouldn't say it.
Butterfly.
But in their clothing, the old German people, well, it wasn't only them, they would sew their kids up for the winter. And they'd have their clothes on them, and they sewed on so they keep warm. She had a hard time to get the parents to not do that, you know.
we girls had to wear an apron, you know, because we only had one outfit for the whole week, and they keep it clean. And they took a picture, you know, real long, the whole school. And here's all the little girls with their white aprons. It's so cute.
Yeah.
I want you to say your name again for the purposes of the camera and the
Sorry.
transcription. Just say your name first.
Taylor. Floyd, I was wondering, what did you do during World War II? Like, were you infantry or?
What?
What'd you do in the service?
I was, got drafted, went into the service. I never did get basic training. They sent me off to William Beaumont General Hospital for nurses training. And I was, well, being I didn't go to high school or anything, well, it was 10 years in there that I never even wrote my name or anything else. And they stuck me in that building and went to throwing those medical terms at me and this and that. And when the day was over, I asked the sergeant, I said, what do they do was when you flunk out of here? He says, they'll find a place for you. There was 300 of us went to the class, and they were 3 of us that was never finished high school. All come from the farms. Well, one kid was from Kansas and the other was from Alabama. And the 3 of us was in the first 15 of the 300 on grades when we come out of that school. And I come out, and a week later I was on the way overseas. And we would go over on the troop ships and bring patients back to the United States on the troop ships. And made 4 trips in the Pacific, and just before D-Day they sent us to Atlantic, and I made 3 trips back on the Atlantic side, and we brought 1 load of German prisoner patients back. And we had to do anything that come up. That was.
I wanted to ask you, because I haven't had a chance to ask you before, the wounds that the soldiers had and the kind of treatment that you were able to give them on those ships coming back, how was that, how did that go?
Well, we had everything on the ship. Well, there was 15 men of us and 2 officers. On our group was a medical officer and a dentist. But they had put, probably 15 platoons of us medics on that ship. And we had everything, surgeons and whatever was necessary to take care of those patients.
So how did they decide which troops were well enough to travel? Did they?
Well, that come from the base hospital. If they was too bad, and well, they'd load a lot of them on the plane and send them to Germany, or well, send them home as quick as they could. And it was just sorting them out.
So the men you treated were all had injuries that had been treated in Europe or
Was
Japan.
treated before, yeah.
Right, and so their chances of getting back were
Yeah.
pretty good. How many did you lose in transit?
I don't think we lost a patient.
No?
We lost 1 guy. He was well, before ever, just a crazy. And he knocked the guard down at the gate. And he was 3 decks below on that ship. And it was a big ship. And he never missed the gang stairway going up on deck and jumped overboard.
Oh.
But he just didn't want to come back to the States, the shape he is in.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Someone else?
Brett, I was just, where are you going exactly when you went to Europe to pick up soldiers?
Where'd you pick them up at?
Well, Townsville, Australia. It was, we made 2 trips to Townsville, Australia, and they would bring the wounded out of North New Guinea and everything, and gang them up on the field hospital, and then they'd get too many, get enough, why the ship would come in and they'd load them on the ship, and wherever we was at, or whichever one of our platoons was there, why they'd load them on the ship and bring them back to the States.
What was the name of that ship you were on?
I can only, the Lurlines, I was on 2 of them. That's 2 sister ships. I was on the Blanchest Sigmund, the only hospital ship I was on. It was a new ship that they loaded here, or loaded in the United States, made in the United States. And its first voyage over, they was able to carry medics on it. It sailed under the Red Cross, and
What was the name?
huh?
What was the name?
Blanchest Sigmund.
Blanchett.
I've got a picture of it at home. But the ship, they didn't know how to load it, and they had all kinds of cargo in the wrong place. And it happened, I don't know how, but these New Yorker cookies, they had them in the refrigerator, and they lined us all up on the deck, up one deck and around, to move those cookies out of the refrigerator, which didn't have to be there. Well, it went by our quarters, and some of those boxes got in the quarters. But that was the only hospital ship I was on. But they could carry medics over on it, and it was supposed to be safe. It didn't have to.
Did you ever come under attack or on the ships?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple. But we, right down in the Gulf of Mexico, is the nearest we had come of getting bombed. And I didn't think a ship that big could, well, get up and go with that fast. Yeah.
Rory, how long were you in the Army, and what year, how old were you when you were enlisted?
Excuse me, my throat's tickling. You got a
Yeah.
handy?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Looking for a hanky?
No.
I went in November the 18th, got out November the 23rd, 3 years later.
Wow. And how old were you when you were?
I was 25,
25.
26. I'm sorry, I don't.
Brett, I was wondering if your dad remembered coming to America.
You coming, Rep?
if he remembered coming to America, if he had any stories that he ever told you.
The last part, I'm not.
Your dad coming to America.
Well, my dad was only 4 when he was on the ship,
Okay.
and they were with other relatives. And he saw his cousin, well, he passed away, died on the ship, and he saw him bury him and drop him over the side of the ocean, ship into the ocean. And I said it haunted him the rest of his life. He just couldn't, hurt him so. And I think it frightened him, thinking, now if I die, are they going to put me overboard too? Yes, so.
Do you, what year was that? Do you know what year that was when he came over?
Yes, when?
Yeah.
Would have to look at it. We had 2 cousins that studied all of this, and it took them about 3 years, and they traveled to Germany, and they traveled to around to Nebraska and South Dakota, and it's quite thick, and it's about that big, and it's thorough. It was so interesting. And some of the uncles of my dad's were in Napoleon's army, and like that, they did a lot of research with them.
He probably came over in 1893, around in there, didn't they? Didn't they come over in 1893? 94?
It was in the 1800s.
1890.
My dad was born in Odessa, Russia too, and he come when he is 4 years old.
Myra, you said you were from Germany. Where are you two from?
My folks were from Switzerland, up in there. West Virginia, landed in West Virginia. Your folks come, his dad was born in Odessa, Russia.
My mother, she is Pennsylvania Dutch.
Deanna, and Betty, can I just ask you, how old were you when you became a blacksmith, and did you enjoy it, and?
I enjoyed it, because
Yeah?
I got to be with my dad,
Mm-hmm.
because I was daddy's baby, spoiled. I'd rather work with dad than